Welcome to 221B Baker Street by way of the Southgate Bridge. I am your host, Zachary here, avid Sherlock Holmes fan, Sherlockian, whatever you want to call me. And with me, as always, is everyone's favorite regular Karen Vera.
Hello, Zach.
So, of course, we were talking about the penultimate episode, The Invisible Hand.
Invisible Hand, yes. And we left last week's episode with the mention of Moriarty, which of course is tantalizing and exciting to find out what would happen next.
And as we see right from the beginning of the episode, she is actually not the one behind them.
No. From Sherlock's wall of crazy, he already has figured out that we can rule out that Jamie Moriarty is not directly involved in the goings-on that they've been investigating the last couple of episodes.
Which he tells to no one.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Morland is all, we better keep me updated and more.
I meant literally he was talking to himself at the start of the episode.
Yes, because he's surprised when Watson comes back and says, "Oh, you're gone. You're quiet
like
for 1 hour."
Like he fully expected that she was just listening the whole time he was.
Yes. So we have a wall of crazy, and Watson is observing that he's been tracking down their letters to each other, and there's some nice little banter about does Jamie put dates on the letters? And Sherlock says, "Of course I do. I record every letter I send to her." And that Sherlock also shares that Moriarty writes to a lot of people. It's like, who could she be writing to? But apparently she does. And she writes to Sherlock the most. It's most prolific for Sherlock. So that's a really funny detail that I found amusing.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out, apparently what it looks like what happened was that someone, after they defeated Moriarty, took over the organization.
Yes. So that's what he's trying to sort out. Who would be taking over now that there's a new head for this whole cartel.
Yes. So from there, when they're figuring it out, we go back to Moreland. And it's funny, when I saw the water guy, I'm like, hey. Because it's always someone who's you don't look twice at when they get in.
Yes. I was thinking Moreland would have special fancy bottled water and not water from a fountain. Maybe that's for the security guys and the support staff and not for himself.
Yeah, guests and stuff.
Yes.
But it turns out that this waterman, not surprisingly, is an assassin setting a bomb.
Yeah. And we also meet this girl, Allison, who is reporting to Moreland giving him a business update. And Moreland tells her, you're late for this report. And I'm thinking, would you ever be late for a report you have to give to Moreland? I would be scared to death. Not submit things on time.
I don't think that's her biggest worry anymore.
No, that's not. But yeah, so there is a bomber intruder in this place, and Allison is the one who says, Allison notices it has extra security, and so to that point, she also knows that this is a guy who is unaccompanied and unchaperoned in this area. And unfortunately, that's the end of Allison after that.
Yes, and so he sets the bomb, and they're investigating the scene, and for the moment, Watson's keeping Gregson and Bell in the dark, because that's what Holmes thinks they should do. And they say that Moreland's overseas, but turns out he's just in a safe house in New York.
Yeah. He's a Malaysia on business equals to safe house, okay?
Yeah. I just love it. It's like, no one knows we're here. Knock, knock.
Knock, knock. Of course Sherlock knows, yes. And I think that's when Sherlock shares what he knows, not everything, but he decides to tell Moreland about Moriarty.
What's interesting is we never find out how Sherlock found the safe house.
It's a very safe assumption that Sherlock knows every piece of property that Moreland owns, most likely.
Indeed, yes, even the one's not his name or that kind of thing. So I like how even Moreland can't wrap is someone who, again, like he said, someone who knows the way the world works, or thinks he does, even he can't wrap his head around such an organization existing. And Sherlock Holmes, this was almost a favorite quote, that like an apex predator, like something who thinks he has nothing to fear is not going to think that he has to look for such a thing.
I've needed to come to terms with Moreland not being aware that such an organization would be around, because he pretty much, I think, I would assume, follow the same tactics that Moriarty's organization does. A lot of heavy hand, a lot of bit of violence to get their way.
Well, I think Sherlock Holmes. I can completely believe that the reason he doesn't know is because it's pride. I can buy that.
Oh, he thinks he's he's the apex predator.
Exactly.
That's why. Okay, maybe. But because he has eyes and ears everywhere, as Sherlock likes to say. So.
Well, maybe it's more like he's aware of the events that the Moriarty's organization triggers, but he doesn't have the imagination like Sherlock would to see that they're connected.
Yes, yeah. And as in the conversation between Marlon and Sherlock, when Marlon says "we'll see," because Sherlock doesn't want to give away anything who Krasnov, the assassin, is working for, and the "we'll see" is like, so I already felt the dread that John Noble could deliver such a too short word sentence. So that's really he kept Krasnov's thumb in storage. So that's the kind of collection Marlon has.
Yes, and from there we go to the browser and we see one of. I wonder who actually paints that stuff.
I wonder that too. I mean, again, the production designers of the show have to deal with sourcing turtles, finding a painter. I guess it's just another task that they need to do for the show. Honey that they can pour out of the sinks, stuff like that. So that's all. That's all part of a day's work for them.
So it's all part. Apparently, he's looking to the company because as Marlon said, he was trying to find Ralph, but someone got him out of the country. Sherlock was looking through that angle, and his investigation leads to a certain company. He finally narrows down the list to a professor named Vickner, and he believes he's the one most, not only because he's the right age and the right intelligence, but also, and the reason for the painting, he has a painting in his biography picture.
Yes.
Of a reimagining of a classic Vernier. Now, what I think is worth mentioning is a characteristic. Obviously, they're the same person, but the whole reimagined painting was something he learned about. So this is almost like a characteristic of Irene helped as a clue.
Yes, I'm sure Sherlock has not forgotten that, and I wonder, the point of discovery for that clue would have been, something we could have seen on the show. I was hoping that would happen, but yes, so it's all coming together. Moriarty had an organization. She's now incarcerated, and Sherlock puts together it must be this Victor person, and based on something that ties back to that Adler persona that Moriarty. That's her cover usually, right? Her cover is like she's a painter / restoration artist. So we go straight ahead and meet Vickner soon after this.
And Vickner is played by Mr. Tony Curran, who I'm a huge fan of. Yes. He's a very good actor, an excellent choice for this kind of role.
Yep, he has that face that looks pleasant, but could be malevolent in a snap. So yeah, it's great casting. We've seen him in a lot of other shows and movies, and he's the perfect casting for playing somebody who's kindly professor yet running a organization of violence and thuggery and.
Well, I mean, this man has played a vampire. He's played Vincent Van Gogh. He just did a mobster role in the Netflix Daredevil show. Oh, he's got some range to him.
Yes, but he does look like Van Gogh. He really does.
Yeah, well, that was one of my favorite episodes. His portrayal was just perfect.
Yes, and then he goes to the point. He says, "Sherlock Holmes, Doctor Watson."
That was great when he just. I think it's funny because obviously we know, when we watch, we're like, "Oh, Sherlock Holmes," but a lot of people don't say Sherlock Holmes. We don't get to hear that a lot, but no. It's interesting that he just outright says, "Yep, it's me."
Yep, and so that's when they go for a walk, and he tells them more of what he's up to, and he basically, like you said, doesn't deny that apart from being a professor, he is running Moriarty's organization, and somebody needed to take over. And from also the conversation, we find out that Vickner was close, quote unquote, to Irene / Moriarty, just as Sherlock was close to Irene. slash Moriarty.
Yes, he's that girl we met. He's her father.
Yep, Caden's father, and that's also why the thing that Sherlock's trying to connect now is that why they're trying to hurt his father, and Victor admits that Sherlock and Watson are untouchable according to Moriarty. So no harm would come to them.
I love how he can't wrap his mind around why it was extended to Watson.
Well, I guess the police she helped bring down Watson essentially. So maybe he doesn't know that much, but Victor knows enough of Sherlock that he's special to Irene.
I think what's fascinating about this episode is obviously there's stuff he has to figure out, bad guys he has to take care of. There's not really a case in this part of the
No, but there's a minor case of trying to tie Ruslan Krasnov, the assassin of the last, few episodes of the season, to catching him and committing a crime on American soil. And I have to say, this actor plays a Russian character in practically every show I've seen.
Well, he is Russian.
Yes. He was in Big Bang Theory. He was in all these other. If you need a Russian, you get this actor. I don't even know his name.
Yeah, I don't remember him. He played one of the Russian cosmonauts in Big Bang. But he also was a Russian. This is what I first saw him. He was a Russian mobster in an episode of Leverage. I mean, he had a minor role as a Russian in the movie Charlie Wilson's War. He had a fun little part in Live Free or Die Hard, one of the few enjoyable parts. But he also was a Russian immigrant in Deadwood. He's a really good character actor.
Yep. I'm glad that he has a niche, right? That at least Russian, he's your number one choice.
It seems so, and it's very fun to watch him. So after talking with Victor, they decide to go try to get at him through Krasnov. So they're looking at the scene. They're trying to figure out how he could. With how much explosive, how could he possibly get on it? I mean, it's so secure building. So Holmes figured. And what's interesting is this is another reason that makes it a little different than other episodes is he figures out something we already knew.
Which is what you're referring
to. The water.
Yes, that's right. We already knew that. Yeah, we know it's the water, but they sorted out because of the volume of liquid that needs to be delivered to a location to create the bomb. And and then we cut to a little water jug in the water office. So that's a nice little edit from the show.
Yes. So they track it down. They find that apparently because of the timing of and what happened with the truck, people who owned the company thought it was just like a joyriding prank.
Yes.
And I love how the cops took so long to get to the truck. The bomber was able to bring it back in time.
Yes. So and the truck is still there at the office, right? So they go and inspect it. And
what's cool, they look in, they realize that he must have used a hand truck. Now, what's funny about this is I've worked retail, so that actually makes sense to me because I've done the thing where you have a new sale out, you just put the new ticket over the old one.
So that's why it appeared differently, and right away they noticed that there must be some price change because of the two stickers as you described. And I guess you can also detect what retail store that sticker belongs to.
There'd be just certain ways to just call it. It's some grunt work, but you'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
So they use that. They're looking into it now. So back then we have Moreland coming to the brownstone because obviously he heard about them going after Krasnov.
Yes.
And I think this scene shows so much about the character.
We've been waiting 22 episodes to see this scene. Really.
Yeah. The thing is, again, it's so easy to make him do once because he's not a good guy or bad guy, but obviously he's not really that good either. He's so mad at Sherlock, but he doesn't even care. He doesn't even pick up on how offended Sherlock is that he considers that this is all about Sabine and that his mother was in the past tense thought doesn't even matter anymore, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and even from the little admission that Krasnov shouldn't be tortured or killed, he should be made to testify. And Moreland right away says, testify about what? And which, he makes the deduction that Sherlock knows more and not telling him about it. And like a good dad, Marlon can tell when Sherlock's lying. I guess he's had years of practice for that.
But what's great, and this is something we saw before, this is a characteristic of Moreland, and this probably also ties into his pride and him not knowing in the organization, is he has to blame Holmes
Yes.
for Sabine's death. He can't accept that, like...
We need to talk about this.
Even with all the embellishments, obviously Holmes is right that the people Moreland deals with a lot of the time are not the best characters. But Moreland cannot accept responsibility. And whenever he comes... Like, the same thing happened with Holmes when they talk about Holmes' mother. He gets really petty.
Yeah, This is a layer in the conversation between Marlon and Sherlock that is mystifying, because why is he so petty? Why did he expect Sherlock to sort of go after Moriarty's organization when, why is he putting on this guilt onto Sherlock, the blame? And, and for what reason? Because did he love Sabine that much that he would sort of blame his own son? So I
think it's ego.
Then
someone like that paints an image of that he has to believe. Again, it's the same thing when he realized he was a suspect for a little while. Yes. And Kirk's death. He can't see. He does not see himself as the villain at all.
Exactly. So you know what, Sherlock was right. And that's some. If your ego's that enormous, that is kind of monstrous in a way, right?
Mm.
So
yeah, I think that, and although I'm curious, we only got one episode left, which we haven't watched yet, even though we're a little behind. But are they going to be able to wrap this up in one? I'm a little worried that we're going to get a season cliffhanger.
It's not Elementary style to really have a cliffhanger, but you might be living with one. Yes. So
but it's not their style, but it is their style to do something different with every season finale.
Yep, you're right. So anyway, we have this major tension, Sherlock, Moreland, and it's a low blow from Moreland again, to say, like, what will happen? Will you go off on a binge? And to bring up even Sherlock's weakness and his addiction is really cruel, I think, of Moreland to bring up, and as a, but Sherlock's unfazed, he just like, thanks, Dad. We're going to continue on by. So that's we see the full Moreland effect now as we get to the second to the last episode. So imagine growing up, imagine being a kid and having that kind of parenting, right? So I wonder how Mycroft survived.
It should be interesting.
Yeah.
Now they are able to capture Krasnov.
Yes.
And he's doing the whole I don't speak English thing.
Yes.
And of course, a big surprise, Sherlock can speak Russian. Now, of course, the Dostoevsky quote is very important, but I think the Cicero quote is very relevant. Because it says it's the peculiar quality of a fool to perceive the faults of others and to forget his own. That's Moreland. That's exactly what Moreland's doing.
You know what? That didn't come together in my head till you just, put it together right now. It's poetic and on point. It's amazing that, they found the perfect words to describe Moreland in a form of his old quote coming from a Russian assassin. So that's a nice bit of screenwriting, for sure.
Yes. And so, and Krasnov says quite right that they don't really have anything on them, and they can't extradite into Russia, so they have nothing. So, but I like how he says, and we learned this again when we talked to Victor, that he's not an idiot. That if they do have something on him, he will very readily make a deal and betray his boss.
Yes. So we have to leave Krasnov as is, and Sherlock just says, he is probably a suicide risk, so please get his shoelaces and his belt. And there we have another clue to perhaps Krasnov being charged with something.
Yes, because apparently there's some corrosion on his belt buckle, which is a clue to a propellant, which usually would burn up in a bomb blast.
Yes.
But luckily, it's because obviously he made it himself, it's on his own, so they can investigate the crime more that way.
Yes.
But in the meantime, Sherlock gets a call from Victor.
Ruslan's boss, yes. And once again, Sherlock reminds Joan that not to worry about him because he's untouchable. And they do meet in a location that would be seen safe from any kind of attack, which is Allison's wake.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's well, he doesn't get to show that he wasn't going to attack him. Now, this scene is just, I mean, this is, again, two great actors.
I love this scene. Yeah.
And we see that he said, and it's something I was thinking of, that this is, it's fascinating, because it's not what Holmes usually deals with, but it's also how, it's like a war, like it literally is a war.
Yes. So Victor knows that he's brilliant, but Victor knows Sherlock is brilliant, Victor knows Sherlock is his father, and Victor knows that because he's untouchable, can he sort of find a way to get to Moreland? Can they fight together? But Holmes is untouchable, and I guess they'll have to make a truce. In that case, they'll have to, find a peace. But Sherlock doesn't want to help Victor. So that brief description doesn't even describe how beautifully this scene was performed by Tony Curran and Johnny Miller. So.
Well, it's more like Holmes. I think Holmes very, very bluntly says, because you killed someone, like his great love, Sabine, that Moreland's not going to care. He will not go for peace, so it's not even worth bringing up. But also, Holmes says something very interesting, and I'm hoping we learn this next episode. He believes that there's more to it. That's not just because if he wanted Moreland dead, he'd be dead. There's something else going on here that he believes is Victor's not telling about. And also, it's worth mentioning before that they say, because it's weird, it's that they were able to track Susan down through credit cards. That is not a mistake Moriarty made. So he is as smart as Moriarty, but he doesn't have her style. And I gotta love how Holmes is surprised Watson pays Moriarty a compliment.
Yeah, she has good shoes as well.
I'm very fascinated to see if there is more to, because I believe too there's something more going on. Because why is it Moreland? It's something we've said. If this had been her and she wanted Moreland dead, he'd be dead. Yes. But Victor's playing some other game. But what it is, we don't know yet.
Yeah. So what we have so far, Zach, is we have two cartels, two leaders of the cartels who are capable of extreme things to get what they need, which is Moreland and Moriarty. One is in prison, and another has taken its place, who is probably just as ambitious, but not, like you said, probably not as cutthroat as Moriarty. And we have one who's made an attempt on his life has been made, which is Moreland, and we don't have the connections to the dots at all at this point, and there's only one episode left. So it is intriguing how they will, how Sherlock and us, the audience, will get to see how this is all connected.
So they're able, also through the investigation, they're able to track down the chemical through an unsolved murder, which is which. As a security guard myself, I'm like, it's always a security guard that's killed.
Yes, and it's it boils down to the pesticide, which if you need to get a large quantity of, is recorded and documented. So this is how they find a clue to Krasnov, and it turns out Krasnov had to kill someone to get this amount of pesticide, and they think they're getting down to pinning Krasnov at this point.
But not so, because an officer walks right, and I knew something was up, but I didn't see that. I just walks her up, make sure it's Krasnov, and blows him away, then kills himself. And I love this part where Brecken's like, well, where's the shooter?
Yes.
And he has to be told that it's the cop.
Yep. And this is very Moriarty style, kind of getting people to do her bidding, right? She'll lean on you for something, whether it's money, whether it's some kind of threat to members of your family, or some kind of skeleton in your closet, and you will end up being pushed to the brink and doing what needs to be done. In addition to some kind of threat, turns out this cop who did the shooting took the Dante test, and so he would be capable of going to such lengths as well. So that ties
Now,
up, the last episode to this one.
and what's I think something very worth mentioning here is Gregson's anger. It's like
Yeah.
the best analogy you could think of. He's almost like a lord or a sheriff being brought into a battle. This is his house, and the war has been brought into his house. He's so mad
Yep.
that like something like this would happen. It's like personal to him.
Yep. This is all, getting bigger, a bigger situation, and it's involving a cop who does, something, disobeying the law, which is, I'm sure, very painful for Gregson. So yeah, I agree that we can see in Aidan Quinn's performance that this is getting too deep for him at this point. He'll be urgent about things.
Now, Sherlock says he needs someone. When I said there's someone I haven't talked to yet, I thought he was going to be Moriarty, and I keep wondering if we're going to see her. I mean, did she want Victor to take over? Like, what? I'm dying to know if Moriarty has an opinion on all this.
I'm just from my own personal guess, she does, but because she's in jail, her communication is limited, as Sherlock said at the top of the episode. There's too much activity and too much action happening for it to be controlled from her jail, her cell. So it's also a mystery to Sherlock. It's a mystery to us on how this is gonna work in. Sadly, from a practical point of view, I don't think Natalie Dormer is gonna be on this show because it would have been promoted like mad if she did. But I still
Unless
have
it's a
hope
surprise.
well, if the producers are that good.
I know so many. I hate when shows just say weeks ahead of time. Hey, guess who's gonna be on?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Money has to be made. Shows have to be promoted. They need to do it.
But so they go back to Brown. Sherlock notices something is up, so he takes a back door.
Yeah.
It turns out there's another water bomb or chemical bomb, I should say, in the brownstone, and the episode ends right there.
Of course. Cliffhanger number 2.
But now I wonder what this means, because like we said, Sherlock is supposed to be untouchable, and I wonder if Victor broke the rules and decided to go after Sherlock. I wonder if that's what brings Moriarty in, because she will not like that.
That's a good guess. That could very well be, because yes, if the given is that Sherlock is untouchable, Victor is going against Moriarty's directions, and there'll be consequences for that if you disobey Moriarty. I'm so sure. Or there could be a third or a second option. It could be in a far-fetched way. Moreland, if he's that vindictive, is trying to draw out something from his son. I wouldn't put it past Moreland, honestly. So we'll have to wait till the last episode of season 4 to resolve this. I don't think the Brown's going to get bombed, by the way. That's not really the mystery. The mystery is who planted it. Because they got to it in time. So I don't think the Browns is going to be harmed.
It could be, because, again, this is a season finale. I believe that obviously we know Sherlock and Watson won't get killed, but the brownstone could get blown up.
No, Clyde's in the fridge. The bees. What's going to happen to them? No, don't hurt the brownstone, Moriarty, please.
I think you mean Victor.
Oh, yeah.
If it is Victor.
Don't kill Clyde, because if Clyde gets killed, all the elementary fans will be, mightily upset. So.
We'll have to see. So I don't really, I didn't really have any favorite lines.
I do have a few, but you go ahead.
Okay, you go ahead. No, I meant you go ahead. You do your lines.
So one earliest is Watson says about the cameras in Moreland's neighborhood, saying all of them are corporate vampire types. Half of them won't show up on film. So that was really funny. And I liked it when Sherlock told his dad at the safe house, I'm glad I still have the capacity to surprise you. It's not mutual. So that's some kind of shade that is quite clever and deep and, more piercing than one would realize. Do you think that makes you less fascinating to her is another thing that Victor told Sherlock. And the other one is why would you remove the shoelaces, Belle asks. And Sherlock just says, the shoelaces would make it harder for him to walk, because why not? So I thought it was really funny. And lastly, even the way Sherlock delivers the words, we all want things because Victor's telling Sherlock what he wants, and Sherlock just says we all want things. So it's a lovely delivery from Johnny Depp. So those are my favorite lines from the episode.
Yes, and it's great when he says that, and when he says the moral. You can read in the paper because he's like saying to him, like everyone else, because he's saying to the guy who's used to getting everything he wants. I think that ties into that. Yeah. So for rating this episode is a little hard for me because again, there's no case.
Yes.
So I can't rate it like I normally would, like saying, "Oh, the clues matched up great." But I was definitely interested in whetting my appetite. I gotta know. What is the end game? I mean, this is an actual war going on, and how is it going to end? So, high marks on that. I mean, they're doing so. I mean, every season finale of the show is unique. They have never repeated themselves. So, I am quite fast. It's good rating. So, I'm waiting to see what the second part of this, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, each time the season ends for Elementary, it's unique, but at the same time, it deepens the story, and it's not exactly a suspenseful thing necessarily, but we have so many questions, and the mystery just deepens for us, the viewers, every time the season ends. And season 3 ended with the advent of Morland coming into the lives of Sherlock and Joan, and now that we have Morland mixed up with Moriarty, with Victor, and lives are on the line, and Sherlock and his father have been coming to some kind of major terms with each other that is a reward for us, the viewers, because we've been intrigued by Morland for so long, and we finally get this amazing scene between the two of them. So that in itself, with a little, there's not much mystery to hang on to, but because we have this sort of payoff, this fruition of Sherlock and Morland, especially, it's amazing work for this episode.
Yes, I definitely agree. So I think is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm looking forward to how this ends. We both deliberately now have been keeping ourselves in the dark so we will have maximum surprise when we see the final episode. So I'm looking forward to chatting with that one.
Indeed. So for now, until the finale, we must depart, for the game is afoot.